Do you ever wonder what's really going on in government, locally, in the state of Tennessee, and across the country? I'm Tennessee State Senator Bo Watson, and on Tennessee Today, we dive into the issues that shape our communities, from local policy to national debates. Each episode, I break down key topics and issues, share my perspective from over 20 years in the Tennessee legislature, and talk with guests about the decisions that impact your daily life. I hope you enjoy these honest conversations and that they help you stay informed and engaged. Be sure to like, follow, and subscribe to Tennessee Today wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. Welcome to this episode of Tennessee Today. I'm Tennessee State Senator Bo Watson, and today I have a real treat for me personally, as well as I think for the viewers of this podcast. I have Dr. Lori Bruce, who is the new, I guess we can still call you new, Chancellor at the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga, which is my alma mater. Proud graduate, class of 1983, with a BA actually in biology, because I took 2 years of Spanish when I was there. And so that moved me from the Bachelor of Science degree to a Bachelor of Arts degree. Oh. So I had a great experience while I was at UT Chattanooga, and I'm thrilled to have you there. You started, I think, maybe at the end of June of this year. So June 30th. July, August, September. So we're 3 months. We're into the first quarter.
Yeah.
So this is our first quarter check of how things are going. So welcome to Tennessee Today. Glad to have you here.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, I just wrapped up my first 90 days. So
interesting, and we've talked about this, but so the provost at UT Chattanooga,
yes,
Phil Oldham,
yes,
left UT Chattanooga to go to Tennessee Tech.
Yes. And
now the provost at Tennessee Tech has left Tennessee Tech to come to be the chancellor at UT Chattanooga. That's kind of an interesting path. How long were you at Tech?
A little over 7 years.
Okay, 7 years at Tech, and then the opportunity comes up to leave an LGI and come to UT Chattanooga. What was it about UT Chattanooga that, beside the fact that it's a great city, what was it about UT Chattanooga that drew you from? Because Tech's got a great engineering program, and we've got a good one, but we've got opportunities to improve. So what drew you here?
It was a combination of things. One, just the city, knowing that it's a fantastic city, a livable city. It's a city that can feel like a small town at times. You still run into people you know in the grocery store. And to me, that's a really great balance of kind of metropolitan life mixed with a little bit of a homey small town feel. So that was important. It did move my husband and I both closer to our parents, slightly, not a lot. But I would say the biggest thing is the university itself, having a great reputation. Having spent 7 years as a provost, I was really in tune to what the universities in the state are capable of, the quality of the academic programming, the quality of the faculty. And UT Chattanooga, I knew, had very high quality incoming students, so relatively high average ACT, very, very commensurate with Tennessee Tech, ETSU, in terms of the average ACT of the freshmen coming in. So you got good students, academically prepared students, a lot of first-gen students. About a quarter of our undergrads are first-gen. I'm naturally attracted to places that serve first-generation students. I just believe in that mission and the mission of accessibility and affordability. And then having been a provost, I had spent a lot of time working on the quality of the academic program at Tennessee Tech. And the Tennessee Higher Education Commission has a program where they score universities. And it's a very, very intensive program where they assess the quality of academic programs. And you get a score. It's a 100-point score. And I was very proud that last kind of full year I was at Tennessee Tech, we scored 100 on that. And that goes into a deep dive in the qualifications of your faculty, how your students' pass rates are on licensure exams. It's a really deep dive assessment. But that year, that we scored 100 at Tennessee Tech, UT Chattanooga had the second highest score of the universities in the state. And so I was really monitoring that and watching that across the state. And so I knew UT Chattanooga had great programs, great students, strong faculty, stable budget. And so it was and a good mission, a good mission to be accessible and affordable and be kind of opportunity makers for students.
Yeah. Let's talk about that just for a second. So how does, as a Chattanooga UTC alum, and there are a lot of, and I'm sure you're meeting them every day now in various positions around our community, how does UTC fit into the overall UT system strategy for providing post-secondary education?
I think it's, when I look at the 5 UT campuses, they're each unique and they're each serving kind of complementary roles. Not every student wants to go to a 40,000 person, a 40,000 enrollment university, right? That's not a fit for everyone. And not everyone wants to go to an urban campus. Some students want to go to a rural campus. And when you look at each of those 5 campuses, they really do complement each other in terms of what they offer students. And I think UT Chattanooga is kind of in the sweet spot. And I really believe that. I've been telling my tagline that when I'm talking to parents and students is that we're big enough to matter, but small enough to care. And so, and I believe that's really true. I believe that's really true.
I need to share that with my communications people. They need to come up with some of these really good lines like that. That's a really good one.
But it is. I feel that's true. And so, if you really want to study, agricultural something in agriculture, you're probably going to pick UT Knoxville or UT Martin. If you want a really, really small campus environment with 1,000 students on campus where everybody knows each other, you're going to pick UT Southern. I feel like UT Chattanooga has this balance of being metropolitan, still having easy access to hiking and kayaking and outdoor living, but kind of being this hip, urban, metropolitan campus. And then even our research focus. If you're a grad student or, say, an honor student that's wanting to participate in undergrad research, if you look at what our research emphasis areas are, it's smart cities, it's smart urban, it's integration of AI not necessarily into, say, agriculture, but into urban. It's quantum computing. But then it's also just the fact that we're right there on the Tennessee River. We have a really strong group of faculty doing research in, stormwater runoff, watershed management. So you kind of get that blend of expertise in, I would say, health sciences, because we're here in a city with a very strong health services, environmental, but then combined with engineering and urban innovation, it's a really complementary to what the other universities offer.
Yeah. So I'm going to pivot a little bit because you've kind of opened the door on something I really that I think is not just a conversation across the state, which is mostly what I focus on here, but also a conversation nationally, and that is, the value that post-secondary education has. Now, the state of Tennessee, we've taken a position and our policy position has been to try and create as many different opportunities and choices that we can provide for students who they graduate from high school.
Right.
Whether it's traditional 4-year institutions, 2-year institutions, technical programs, TCATs, all that kind of stuff. What are your thoughts in the current climate around higher education? It's under a lot of scrutiny.
Yes,
and that's okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it's okay.
Yeah,
but the value of higher ed in this larger expanse of post-secondary education, where does like 4-year institutions fit into that? And who are the students that you kind of see attracted to 4-year schools?
Yeah. I mean, I agree that right now there's a lot of national attention and I would say questioning about the value of higher education.
Because it is expensive. I mean, in Tennessee, we're a pretty low expense. I mean, you can go to Tennessee for
But a fun fact, over half our students graduate with zero debt.
Oh, I know. I tell people that all the time that, send your kids to in-state schools. They're really, really good. I try to highlight UT Chattanooga, but I share everybody. And I say, you're the best. My son graduated from UT Chattanooga. And he moved, he works at Netflix in LA. And he told me years ago when he first got over there, he said, the best gift I got was the fact that I graduated from college with no school debt. I'm working with these poor folks who are paying and are going to be paying for years to come. So true. So there is a question about, or there is obviously value in staying home. But go ahead. I
Right.
of course, interrupted you, which I'm very good at.
And I will say, looking back at my own life, I graduated with zero debt as an undergraduate. And that is freeing, right? That's the best freedom you can have, is the freedom of choice and the freedom to choose. Do I want to stay with this job that I'm in? Do I want to go to graduate school? Do I want to pivot careers? Do I want to go more into a service area that might have a lower salary, but I'm not worried about an anchor of debt dragging around with me. So I'm very cognizant of that and talk to everyone that'll listen about making choices around affordability and accessibility to ensure you have the least amount of debt possible.
So when you talk to, and I know you really like to engage with students because I saw the opening day of school, you were out there greeting parents and their kids as they were getting out of the car and all that kind of stuff. When you talk to students, or particularly when you talk to students' families, do you ever have to get into the conversation of, let me convince you as to why this is a good investment?
I really don't. Because by that point they've made their choice. They've chosen us and they're here. It'll be interesting to experience our recruitment events. We have something called Power C tours around the state. We have one that I'm going to in Memphis, but we just had one in Nashville. And so there I'm having conversations. And the number one question I get from parents are financial questions about scholarships, financial aid. So they're making choices around the finances oftentimes.
When we're engaging with students at the high school, and I know you have people who go out into the high schools and all that kind of stuff, do we have honest conversations with kids about, look, 4-year schools isn't for everybody. And it shouldn't be that's where we ought to create, our kids ought to be, Tennessee's position is in our high school education, our K-12 education, we ought to be providing a good enough education that you have options. You can choose to go to 4-year or you can choose to go to 2-year technical.
Right.
When your folks are engaging with people, do they have those kind of conversations? And I know they have guidance counselors and all that kind of stuff of, Bo is a good student, good guy, but, I kind of see him over in this bucket.
I think we talk to them about options and we talk to them about partnerships that we have with community colleges, so really strong partnerships with places like Chattanooga State Community College and Cleveland State Community College, where the transition from community college is very easy and seamless into the university, the 4-year university. I do see a value of starting at the 4-year university. There's less, I would say, angst or confusion about whether a course is going to count toward a degree or not count, and so I think there is a value to starting at the 4-year university, and but it isn't for everyone, right? So that is one of the areas that I have put as a priority as chancellor, is really improving how we onboard transfer students. How do we onboard transfer students so that they get the very best experience they can as they transition from the community college, and building partnerships with partner community colleges where students get dual admitted. So, my idea is I want a student, if they know they want to come to UT Chattanooga, but they're coming to Chattanooga State first, I want them to already kind of feel like a mock, and already have some access to campus while they're at Chattanooga State and be dually admitted. So they're already getting a little bit of academic advising from the university. So they're making smart choices in their electives and things while they're at the community college. So it's just a seamless transition in. So we really do focus on that a lot when we're talking to students.
Yeah, I think, and again, in the current climate, people, and it really does, I think you hit on it, the value of post-secondary education, it really does lean on the financial side. Is the amount of money that you're spending for whatever degree you're getting worth the long-term value? And we can talk about the societal benefits and all that kind of stuff, but if you go to an elite university and acquire $100,000 worth of debt, and you get a degree in a position that pays $35,000 a year, you're going to be anchored to that debt for decades to come. And I think we've had that at the legislature. We've had that kind of conversation with our universities about, look, we need to be counseling and be honest with students about, hey, that's a great major, and you can have a great career in that, but it's not going to. So if you get debt mounted up, you're never going to be able to, as you talked about, be able to take other choices because you're going to be anchored to that debt. That's really important.
And I talk to students about living like a student, right? I said, when I was a student.
That's what I'm seeing as to what they live now. They live in luxury compared to what.
They do. And so they're making choices that might have lasting impact. And so it's not just about their tuition and fees or their cost of their residence hall. It's their lifestyle choices and investing in their future, not their now. And some delayed gratification to then give them a runway towards success rather than kind of focusing on the here and now. College is a time to build your future. And I use that phrase, living like a student, a lot. And then I have to explain to them what I mean by that. But that's a real important factor in student debt. It's lifestyle choices, eating at home versus going out to eat, having a sandwich versus going to the Burger Shack. And so that, I think that's important for us at the university to really help the students learn about financial literacy and about the impact of the current financial choices that they're making. But I want to go back for just a second about the value. I was listening to President Boyd. He and I both visited some high schools this past week. We visited Walker Valley High, and
the producer of this show is a Walker Valley High Mustang. Absolutely, yeah.
And
I think they're undefeated in football right now. They're really good.
That was a great high school to visit. We visited a couple other high schools in Cleveland. And I remembered the name Walker Valley High because my son is named Walker.
Okay,
so the name of that high school really stuck with me. But he was explaining in these high school visits that there's statistics and research that show that in the state of Tennessee, if you don't do any higher education, any post-secondary education, you don't get a credential or qualification, 5 years out from high school, the average income is $14,000 a year. If you go to get a 4-year degree, your lifetime earnings versus not having a 4-year degree is $1.5 million higher. And so if you think about what you earn in your salary over your lifetime, $1.5 million more on average with a 4-year degree versus not having a 4-year degree. That is a return on investment. Now, that's the aggregate. You have to then drill down and say, okay, what careers are people interested in? What's the return on the investment in different career paths? So, that's important, I think, for the university to be looking at our academic programming, the degree programs we offer, and making sure they're well aligned with the careers where there are going to be higher compensations.
Yeah, God, you've opened like 3 or 4 different gates that I want to walk through, and I can't walk through all of them, or we'll be here all day. But I do think people really want to want to be able to have a choice of what they're able to do after high school. And our whole K-12 education strategy in Tennessee has been to prepare you to be able to make that choice. And if you want to go to 4-year, great, you'll have the academic background to do it. If that's not what you want to do, if you want to get a certificate, we do encourage students to get something post high school because, as you pointed out, or as the salaries point out, virtually every job now requires something beyond just high school and even certifications and those kind of things. And many people who want to get started in their career, they'll forego the 4-year institution and go to a TCAT or to a community college and get started in a career. But then in Tennessee, we've created a way for those folks to come back around as well. When I was at UT Chattanooga, there was a most of our campus were day students. There were probably 5,000 or 6,000 students there when I was there. Maybe not even that many. Now there are 12,000. A lot more living on campus than used to. How about the non-traditional students? Do y'all still? We used to always have a good supply of non-traditional students. That being the student who left high school, maybe got a degree, an electrical, a degree in or a certification as an electrician, and then 10 years later decided to come back and get their bachelor's degree. There was a good populace of those students on campus. Is that still a strong populace, or is that shifted?
It's a growing area for the university. I would like to see it grow more. If you look at our undergraduates right now, 91% of them are full-time. So 91% of our undergraduates are full-time students, and that typically doesn't include the non-traditional working adult who's coming back to finish an undergrad degree. But that means about 10%, almost 10% of our undergrad are part-time for some reason. Maybe they just went part-time because they have a great internship opportunity. Maybe they are part-time because they're a degree completer or a returning student. But I really would like to see that part of the population of our student body grow. You're talking about living on campus versus not living on campus. I was really surprised when I got to UT Chattanooga. This was not a part that I had really dug into before getting there. I would say the vibrancy of campus life. About 35% of our undergrads live in campus housing. So that's a very, almost 3,800 students live in campus housing. So that's a very high percentage compared to other universities.
Yeah.
Higher than UT Knoxville.
Yeah. Well,
so I have.
We're better than UT Knoxville a lot of things.
So to me, if you do really take the definition of a commuter, we're less of a commuter school, because more of our students live right there on campus, in campus housing.
Yeah. No, I've watched that grow over the years exponentially at my alma mater, and it's been amazing and a good thing. Good thing.
And it creates a more engaged student body. They're more engaged on campus. They're more attending athletic events, doing club activities, intramural sports, and so the student engagement on campus is very, very high. But going back to your question about the degree completers, we have some great academic programs designed specifically for that. We have programs in what are called interdisciplinary studies, integrative studies. So those are programs for when people are completing a degree, but they don't fit neatly into a degree program. And often those returning students don't fit neatly into a traditional degree program. And so those programs are very popular with, I would say contemporary learners, returning students, degree completers, or people who might have gotten a degree and now want to pivot and get a different kind of degree and just pivot their career or restart their career. Maybe they've been out for a while and they want to restart a career. So we do have degree programs specifically designed for them. We also have degree programs, and I think this is where UTC is pretty special because most universities in the state don't have these degree programs. We have 3 Bachelor of Applied Science programs. So, and they're in cybersecurity and IT. There's one in engineering management and technology. And then there's one in leadership. And so if you think about people who went to a community college, there's pretty much three kinds of degrees people get at a community college: an associate of science or an associate of arts, and then an associate of applied science. And traditionally, an associate of applied science was kind of considered a stop-out degree. That was a degree for people who were not going to go on to a four-year university. And so those students, if they want to come back, let's say they're working at a place like Volkswagen. Volkswagen identifies the potential in them, wants to move them up into more supervisory or management, but want them to have a four-year degree. It can be pretty challenging for a student for a working adult with an associate of applied science to get back into a four-year program. If you have a Bachelor of Applied Science program, like we have those three, it's an easy transition for them back into complete their four-year degree. And so that Bachelor of Applied Science and Leadership is a really nice degree for people like that, who maybe the company's wanting to move them up into supervisory roles, management roles. It has courses in HR and, conflict resolution. And so those are degrees specifically designed for working adults who stopped out but want to come back and complete a four-year degree.
So you touched on the environment on campus. Mm-hmm. I want to just ask, we've had a couple of security issues at the university, mm-hmm. right? Which, from an outsider looking in, were handled masterfully. But I think that's something that people are interested in at any university campus now. And as the legislature, we've invested a lot in campus security over the past 3 to 5 years, particularly in the past 2 years. So what are the without too much detail, I've always considered UT Chattanooga to be a very safe campus. I grew up down there. I've had all kinds of family members down there, and so since I was a little kid all the way up till now, I've been very comfortable on the UTC campus. But I think the public probably wants to be sure. So tell us about the security at UT Chattanooga.
Well, thank you for your comment about it, the response being masterful. I was so impressed with the response. And I've worked at universities that had active shooter alerts, and they really were active shooters on campus. And so the response that UT Chattanooga had to that situation was head and shoulders above the response I experienced at other universities. And part of that is because the university is, the UTC Police Department is very coordinated with the Chattanooga City Police Department and the Hamilton County Sheriff's Department and TBI and FBI and all of the law enforcement agencies that are around Chattanooga. The UTC police do regular training, and it's coordinated training. And so that coordinated training was what they went into immediate action in a very coordinated way to respond to that. It was a swatting call. For those who might not know, we had a swatting call that had AI. I've been told AI-generated gunfire sounds in the background. It was a very real-sounding 911 call that lasted for several minutes, and so then the police responded, and it was a swatting call. It wasn't a real threat,
right? Yeah,
but you don't know that. You don't know that when that's happening. We suspected it was very early on, due to the nature of the incident, but you still have to respond as if it's real in that situation. And so it was a very coordinated response. And I've had people tell me in law enforcement it was like a textbook response. But it feels real when you're the person on campus, the student, the faculty, the staff, me. Everybody on campus, we didn't know it wasn't real. And so during that shutdown period, there's a lot of stress, anxiety, fear. And so once that situation is now over, then it becomes really important to do debriefs, look back, what did we do well, what could we have done better, and provide, counseling and support to the people that experienced it. And to recognize not every person on campus had the same experience. I have had students tell me they slept through it. They were taking a nap. They didn't know. And I had other students tell me they were very frightened. They locked themselves in a closet, hid, and so just recognizing that a lot of people had a lot of different experiences. Overall, at the aggregate level, it was very smooth, coordinated, well managed, but there's still people who come out of that with a lot of anxiety and stress. So we brought in state level teams whose expertise is kind of post-crisis counseling. And so we brought those in, provided extra counseling services, and then we've done a series of debriefs. We've shared some of that with campus. I've personally visited with like Student Government Association, faculty groups to just hear their feedback. Probably the number one thing we heard back was we want more training. And the students said we want faculty and staff to have more training. And so I think a takeaway for us was our students, our traditional undergrad student, has lived their entire life through a K-12 system with regular drills, lockdowns, lots of training. Our faculty and staff haven't had all that training. So now we've instituted mandatory training. We're always upgrading our technologies, so whether it's panic buttons, security cameras, use of AI to do automatic threat alerts when an AI can maybe see someone that's holding something in the shape of a gun. So we're always kind of upgrading our technologies. And so we're in the process of doing another upgrade to technologies. But I think the key is the training. We need more training, and it's going to be mandatory training so that everyone has it.
Yeah. Well, I know the legislature and the past two governors, and I'm sure every governor before, if it was an issue to them, they would be as well. But we've been tried to be very supportive of investing in, more and more security upgrades to make sure our campuses are safe, both on a day-to-day basis as well as, for these kind of crisis kind of events. But that brings up another kind of point around safety. And, in recent days, or within the past couple of weeks, we had, the assassination of Charlie Kirk on a college campus. And that has there was a conversation already going on about our college campuses limiting people's ability to express their views. Particularly those of us on the conservative side have felt for years that, college campuses often leaned or were more liberal than they were conservative, with the exception of a few colleges and universities. So how does UTC, as chancellor, how do you approach that to be sure that voices are equally heard both on one side of the political spectrum as well as on the other side of the political spectrum?
Yeah, one of the things that that is really core to my belief system is that universities are spaces for learning, and sometimes learning is through difficult conversations. Sometimes learning, the most impactful learning is when you're talking about challenging topics, and so a university has a responsibility to be an environment where all sides of an argument gets heard, but in a civil manner, civil discourse, and having debates, inviting speakers that are sharing viewpoints that a variety of viewpoints. And so the key to me, though, in all of that is about civility and civil discourse and ensuring that everybody's voice matters and no one voice gets to drown out the other voices. And, we have policies around where if anyone wants to come to a campus, this is typical of a state public university in the whole nation, but, policies around open speech areas where people can come to campus and speak. They have to register and follow the rules about where they go and, not, just bust up into classrooms. There's areas where that outdoors that they go and they speak and they can hand out flyers and speak. There's a process for registering to do that.
Well, and obviously you want people to, whatever their viewpoint is, conservative or otherwise, you want them to register because you want to know that they're on campus so that you can provide the proper security for them if they need it, right?
Exactly. And so, just ensuring that we have spaces that are open for anyone to speak, speak on the topic that of their interest, and but it be a civil discourse. And I think that's where sometimes on campuses it can cross a line is the civility and the conduct, the behavior. It's not the words that are being spoken, but it's the behavior around that speech.
Yeah, well, and again, the reason why if you're going to come on campus, let us know you're on campus. So we can do the proper planning.
Right.
We're not trying to stifle anyone's ability to express themselves. No. We just want to be sure that you're safe while you're doing it. And I think that's a fair. That's fair. I think sometimes people interpret that registration or acknowledgement process as, oh, they're trying to prevent me from being there when you're not. You're just wanting to be sure that people are made to feel safe.
Exactly.
One other thing that we did in the legislature that created probably some challenges on all of our university campuses and within our local governments as well is, we've drawn back a lot on the DEI, the diversity, equity, inclusion stuff, and said, we're really not. We're not going to. We don't want that on our campuses. We think it at least from the legislature's view, that it does more to separate folks than it does to unite folks. And we're more interested in uniting our students than we are separating our students into different groups for whatever reason they might be separated. And I know you've had to go through that at your university as at UT Chattanooga as well. How has that process gone, and what has been kind of the response to it? I recognize that the critics of it are going to be critics of it, but I think if people understood our rationale was to take down barriers instead of create barriers. But how have you had to deal with that?
Yeah. So, we've gone through, because there have been some new laws that took effect, in July. And so I came on board in July. And so since that time, we've been assessing, our programming, where we spend our resources to make sure that we really are in alignment and compliant with those new laws. And to me, I'm not a legal expert, but my biggest takeaway from the new laws is that, when we expend our resources, whether that's financial, the use of our spaces, our people's time, that we do that in non-discriminatory ways. We do that in ways that doesn't favor one group over another group. And so looking at some of the student support centers that we had on campus who were really focused on providing services to one group of students based on their sex, their sexual orientation, their race. And so that is not in compliance with that law. And so really taking a deep look at those and restructuring and creating student support services that are truly open to everyone and are aimed at supporting all students. My biggest goal as a chancellor is in this area, in this topic, is that I want every student on UTC's campus to know they matter, they're welcome in every area, they have access to the same support services and resources that any other student has. And part of that is ensuring that our student services and programs really are designed to support all students and are welcoming to all students.
Yeah, and I think that was the intent of the legislature as well, was to say, look, students should have the full array of things available to them, regardless of whether their skin color or their ethnicity, of any of that. Everything, it should be open. So that's really was our the objective of the legislature. So you're finishing your first quarter. I think it's gone really, really well. 3 months into it, is there anything? Well, I'd say ask it this way: what are you most happy about, and what do you think? Hey, this is a space I need to continue to work in, a little more work in.
Yeah. I would say some of the areas I'm most happy about, kind of my pleasant surprises.
Is most happy? Is that actually? Can I say that? Can you say that, or just say happy?
I would say the areas I've been most pleasantly surprised with is just the stability of the university in terms of its budget, its physical spaces, the state's investment. And thank you for supporting that, and our infrastructure, new buildings on campus. That is, you sometimes you get on a campus and when you go, everything looks glossy on the surface, and you go look in a building, it's like, ooh, that needs a lot of work. I have not found that on our campus. Our campus is in a very stable financial state with growing enrollments, and so that's great. The areas where I really want to pay attention to is our infrastructure to support R&D, because we have a lot of faculty who participate in that, and that's fantastic. They're getting to practice their discipline on the cutting edge. They're including students in that activity. They're bringing that knowledge back into the classroom. We need to really pay some attention to our infrastructure to support that activity. And we also need to really, I think, pay more attention to our transfer students and how we're onboarding transfer students, and that experience that the transfer students is having. I think we have absolutely providing phenomenal onboarding of freshman students. We need to maybe level up a little bit in our experience for our transfer students.
Well, this has been great. I want to thank you for taking the time to come on Tennessee Today and share with me. I'm sure we'll talk more about other things, particularly when the legislature goes back in session in January of 2026 and we begin the budget process and the Complete College Act and how we have to fund that. But that's for another episode. But thanks for being here. It's been a wonderful conversation. Glad to have you in Hamilton County and in Chattanooga, and I look forward to working with you and all the success that we're going to have at UT Chattanooga in the years to come. This has been Tennessee State Senator Bo Watson. I appreciate you tuning in. If you enjoyed today's podcast, or even if you didn't enjoy today's podcast, if you would please just click subscribe. It helps to get this podcast out to other viewers and listeners. So again, this is Tennessee State Senator Bo Watson. Have a great week.